In placing foundation within the self becomes foundation. I think the main thing that we need to focus on before we even begin to try to achieve anything is always to establish a foundation within ourselves. I think that many times we're running around in the world without recognizing how much we're depriving ourselves of in our lack of foundation within. And when I say foundation within, I don't necessarily just mean, like doing some introspection or meditating one time or doing very acute, small, performative, somewhat things. I think it's always vested within the intention that you do things with and the intention that you sort of live. When I say foundation, I really just mean our ability to allow ourselves to be within the moment without any other prescribed comfort. I think that a lot of us are finding ourselves uncomfortable with the situations that we're in. And in this time, many of us are seeking out change and many of us want to change for the better. And one thing I'm recognizing in trying to change or in sort of giving myself an opportunity to change is that your foundations are always established by you. Your baselines are always established by you. And when I say your baselines are always established by you, I mean, I think change in the art of becoming is truly a act of continuing to establish foundation over and over again. In a way, taking yourself into the current moment and establishing whatever you want to be in a way to be that new foundation. And what that means to me is recognizing that we do have power over our minds. We do have power over our thoughts. We have power over how we feel too, because all of those are connected. And in that way, at any moment, we can begin to feed ourselves that which we want to actually grow. We can begin to plant the seeds into our own subconscious, into our own mind, into our own self that can fester and bloom at this very moment, as long as we affirm them already bloomed. And what that means to me is not waiting to give yourself what you need to do the things you need to do. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that change doesn't take time. I don't mean that to say that when we are trying to go out and achieve something, we can achieve it instantly. But the moment we establish to ourselves that we aren't currently ready, or that we aren't fit, or aren't deserving, or aren't, able, then we aren't. And I think it's really as simple as that. So when you're establishing a foundation with yourself and giving yourself, the accolade, the achievement, the ability, at the very least, to do that which you want, like genuinely telling yourself that this is something you're able to do and feeling it. Once we give ourselves that liberty, that freedom to occupy the space that we already take up, we'll take it up so much more gracefully. And we'll recognize that life was never supposed to be about our constant chase for value or chase for acquisition of foundation or chase for comfort. We'll recognize that comfort was always something that had to be established by us. And that doesn't mean that things in the world aren't negative, that there's nothing in the world that could harm you. I don't mean that at all. When I say establish comfort and establish foundation, none of it means don't pay attention to the world around you. Rather, pay attention to the world around you. Instead of allowing your mind to tell you everything about the world, especially the things that you don't know. I think assumptions somewhat take us away from ourselves and take us away from everything that we're actually able to do. And we use the law of assumption all the time. And if you guys are unfamiliar with the law of assumption is, the law of assumption basically states that whatever we assume to be true is what will occur. Like if we assume that we're not able, we assume this thing won't happen for us, then it won't. And in the same way, if we assume this good thing will happen to us, invest our good feeling in that thing, then it's more likely to happen. And in my own experience, that is exactly what occurs. The things that I assume to be true of my life, things that I assume to be true of myself, are always what is expressed. And that's why I think it's important to establish new foundation. Because if I accept to be true something that actually allows me to go out and do what I want to do, then I'll do it. I think the biggest hurdle in our achievement is us thinking that we're unable, is us thinking that we have no foundation and nowhere to stand, when we're already standing where we are. We always have a place in this world as long as we're in this world. And as long as you have yourself, you have somebody. That's not to say you have to be your console at every given moment, but to say you're the one who can establish your new foundations. I feel like many times we wait on other people to tell us that we've changed, to affirm our change, to affirm who we are, to affirm who we want to be. And I don't mean that to say that I don't find value from the relationships I have. I find that I do get supported from other people. There is a foundational aspect of relationships to others. But I feel like the only way that I found to do that healthily and to truly accept that support from others is to genuinely begin to support myself. Because when you do it for yourself, you're sort of establishing a baseline. Like, oh, I deserve this support. I deserve this love. I deserve this care and affection. And you always do. And once you accept that to yourself, then when you receive it from others, it's not like you're just receiving something you already have and you don't appreciate it. You appreciate it because you recognize it's something that you need, something that you have too. When we give ourselves anything, we truly open the door to so much more, because our whole experience is always about what we give. And what we give is always what we receive. You give out hate, you feel the hate that you give. You give out love, you feel the love that you give. And when we give ourselves, it's constantly perpetuated in a cycle. It's a literal feedback loop. And I've recognized over the years, as I've given myself more appreciation, and as I've opened myself up more to the moment and what is, I've given myself so much a greater opportunity at enjoying what's currently here. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the ebb and flow of life and trying to picture all of life at once. We're trying to think of how every situation in our life is going to go and how we're going to react to this situation and how this situation is going to unfold and how that's going to make us feel and how that's going to relate to this characteristic we have. When it really needs to just be about this moment. And I don't mean that to say we don't plan for the future, but plan presently. Like, if I want to be able to do this grand thing in the future, it's about beginning at once to give myself the feeling and thoughts that align with me actually being able to do that. Because that's literally the only barrier that we ever encounter. You know, especially when it comes to things that, we're trying to achieve that aren't just, physical acquisitions. Like, if I want to jump 20 feet in the air, like, yes, it's not going to happen. But in terms of things that are humanly possible, that we know are achievable by us, we must begin to give ourselves that which we need to actually do that certain something. We have to recognize that signs don't follow. Signs follow. They don't precede. We have to learn how to invest in ourselves and invest in what we are before we actually reap any of the benefits of what we're sowing. And if we actually learn to, I find, invest foundation within ourselves or love within ourselves or appreciation enough to actually allow ourselves to be, then we'll feel it instantaneously. It's always about what you give to yourself in the present sense. If you give yourself love now, it's not like you're going to feel it later. You're going to feel it now. And when I say love, I recognize that many people ask questions like, how do I love myself? What does it mean to love yourself? And the only sufficient answer I've ever found is to love yourself is to accept yourself as you are. Honestly and truly. Giving yourself the space that you truly occupy. And not waiting to, reach a certain amount of standards in order to love yourself. I always ask myself a set of questions when I encounter that. Which is, do you love yourself? And if the answer is no, why? And then, why is that reason enough for you to deprive yourself of something only you can give yourself? We don't have to jump through hoops to love ourselves. In fact, I find that through our own self-love and appreciation, we can actually find ways in which to be better people. Because we're not being better people just for those around us, but for ourselves as well. And more than anything, we recognize how we impact ourselves. We recognize how each and every one of our feelings and interactions with others subtly bleeds into the way that we feel about ourselves. because we don't have a foundation vested within. And I'm not sure. Recently, I've been feeling as if the importance isn't to figure out the how of many of our desires. It's to figure out the what it is we want and begin to give ourselves the feeling sufficient. Like, if I want to be, I don't know, say if I want to be like a famous painter or something like that, I wouldn't start establishing foundation by telling myself that I'm not a good painter. I wouldn't start by feeling as if I'm a terrible painter. I would start by telling myself I'm a great painter and that I have the potential, if not the ability, to make great work. And I would begin to paint. And I wouldn't judge my paintings on their great painter scale. I wouldn't put it on a scale in regards to everyone else. I would put it on a scale in regards to myself and call it the greatest I have currently done. Because it is. And give myself the affirmation and the validation proportional to if I was to create some great work that society acknowledged. Because I'm acknowledging it as such. And it is the greatest that I have created. When we don't allow ourselves to be the foundation, when we don't place foundation within the self can't become foundation. And in allowing it to become foundation in this way, we sort of allow ourselves to enjoy the entire process that is our path, that is our journey. Because we'll start to reward ourselves in proportion to our end goal as soon as we achieve something akin. As soon as you take a step, applauding for yourself like you're reaching the last step, the last rung in the ladder. And I think that's what foundation is. Continually applauding yourself and awarding yourself, not in terms of giving yourself certain things, but giving yourself a new perspective, giving yourself a foundation that actually accommodates who you are and what you actually hope to achieve. I think that's what gives us the most, because that's what takes away the least. I think we're often taking it away from ourselves in ways that we don't know, in ways that seem so covert, seem so, subtle. And I think part of it is because we actually haven't taken the time to sit with ourselves. I think a lot of us are making ourselves super busy. We're making ourselves so occupied with the lives that we live, so occupied with our thoughts about the life that we live, that we cease to live it. And I say thoughts about the life that we live because I find that if we're not living in the world, we're living in our mind. And if we're constantly thinking about our prescriptions and how we feel about this and how this made us feel and how that made us feel, we're losing some of our ability to process the moment. And I don't mean that to say we have to disregard how we feel, but feel how we feel presently. Not, oh, I feel this way, but taking it within yourself to feel it. Allowing yourself to occupy the space that you're taking up and allowing yourself the liberty that is feeling. I think many of us take away our accolades, take away our ability to appreciate the moment and ourselves, the moment within ourselves, by not giving ourselves any comfort, any foundation, any applause at what we do, and any love for who we are. It's always about us opening the door to more for ourselves and giving ourselves permission to continue to open the door to what we have yet to find and for what we have yet to become. Your baseline understanding of who you are right now and what you can achieve may be different from tomorrow. But that's not the point. The point is to live in today and give yourself as much as you can in regards to that perspective. Always sitting at the height. Always establishing yourself at the top of the mountain, regardless of how high you've currently climbed. And not being satisfied with that, but continuing to climb. Continuing to recognize that if you give yourself affirmation regardless of how things go, and just on the basis of you doing your best and you putting in work and you existing, then we'll start to do things for ourselves, for our own benefit, through our own love and through our own presence. Because when we're present, that's when I find we are without connotation. When we're not analyzing ourselves, but focused on creation. And The only way I found to truly focus on creation is to not worry about the analysis of others and not worry about the analysis of yourself either. If you can promise yourself self-love, regardless of whatever expresses itself, then you can find yourself within your art and not lose yourself within it. We can establish a foundation that truly allows us to be who we are, regardless of circumstance, regardless of everything that happens. And I know a lot of us want that, because the world has plenty of things. Life always happens. Life is always occurring. Everything is not always going to be good, but you can always be good within things. There's always a relationship that we have to our surroundings, that we have to our situations, that is only characteristic of the way that we talk to ourselves within our internal world, the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we love ourselves, and most importantly, the way that we feel about ourselves on a regular basis. And the thing is, we can change the way that we feel about ourselves. We can change the way that we think about ourselves. So the objective isn't to find things in the world to tell you to stop thinking that way about yourself, or to tell you to feel differently about yourself, but to feel differently about yourself and think differently about yourself. And in that way, you'll naturally find exactly what you need to feel that way as soon as you stop looking for it. When you expect nothing, you gain everything. The point isn't to expect from the world that which will make you feel better about yourself, which will make you feel like yourself. It's to give it to yourself and expect it not from the world. In that way, you gain it from everything that you experience, because you've already received it from yourself. In that way, the more of yourself that you see in the world, the more of that gratitude, that appreciation, that love, the stuff that you give to yourself is going to be seen and felt. I say all that to say, we must begin to establish foundation. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. If you didn't, thank you anyways. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you guys are taking care of yourself and doing what you can, what you have. There's a lot on the way, a lot already here. As many of you know, Drop the Book, that's still there. That's still available. Hardcover, impending soon. Ebook impending. By the time this video comes out, probably already there. But keep being y'all, keep being great. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, doing what you can, what you have. Without further ado, I have one more unveiling.